This is the share too, by the way.
It's on. Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Rocky Hill Board of Education's first budget workshop meeting tonight, Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. It is 6:32, and we are in the Town Hall Council chambers. The only thing on our agenda tonight is the 2026-2027 budget presentation by school administration, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Zito.
Thank you very much, Ms. LaFredo. Good to be here tonight. Great to see our administrative team here. Good cross-representation of students, some teachers. I see some parents here. Ms. Forcier, how are you doing back there? Nice to see you. So I'm happy to be here tonight. I want to thank our central office team for helping put this together, and also our principals who put a lot of thought into their budget request this year, listening to their staff, thinking about the needs of the school. We've got some different slides this year than you're accustomed to. May take a little bit longer to go through the process, and this is the largest budget that I've ever come forward with. And I'll get into the rationale behind that. I think it's been driven by a lot of factors that are frankly beyond our control, and we'll talk about that. And then the process tonight, I would like to present these slides, work through them, go back, entertain any questions you have specific to these slides. Mr. Clemens gets the gold medal for getting his questions in early. Sent me several questions a couple of weeks ago, and we have a packet that you have with you. We prepared answers. We'll work through those next. You also have some other information, and as we get into the presentation later on tonight, as we look at our book, we will orient you to the book and explain the additional handouts as well. So with that, I'm going to kick it off, and here we are. We are looking at a recommended budget increase of 8.9%. It's almost a $5 million increase over the current actual budget, which is at about $55.5 million. We have some unique challenges for this budget. We have 5.2 new staffing positions. A couple of those restore positions that were lost during the budget process last year. We've seen a significant spike in medical insurance. That's statewide. It's not unique to Rocky Hill. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We just put our transportation contract out. As you know, the board approved for us to go out to bid. We had two bids come in. The low bid was 14.5%. The other bid was about 38%. So obviously we're going with a low bid, which is New Britain Transportation. That's also pretty consistent with statewide numbers, which are trending anywhere from 12 to 20 on transportation contracts. And then with special ed, we have an increase in tuition. That's a number that typically always goes north, not south, and rises. And we have a handful of more students in some specialized settings, and there's a fairly significant spike there. In terms of the way the dollars drive the budget, kind of break this out for you. As you would expect, the majority of the expenses are related to salaries and benefits, 82.4% combined for those two factors. If you look at the next two drivers, transportation and tuition, throw them in with the top two, there's 90% of your budget right there. People, buses, and our tuition costs. And then the rest of the budget, you see it kind of broken out on a percentage basis for the major accounts. It's another way of looking at the information here with a pie chart. And again, the salaries, roughly 2/3. That's pretty consistent in every school district that I've worked in. Very consistent for Rocky Hill. Benefits about another 16% of the overall pie. And again, that's over 80% of the spending is on people costs. So another thing we like to do, just to really get a detailed look at this, is to break down the 8.9% increase. So when we think about that large increase, which is large, larger than I've ever brought to you before, what is driving that and how does that break out specifically? So the salaries alone are pushing that 4.7. So if we did nothing else, if there were no changes in Any other areas, just in the salaries, for example, the increase would be just about 5%. The benefits drive it another 2.25%. The transportation, that's a large increase, almost 1%, 0.71%. Again, that's a function of the low bid. Tuition, you see that number there, 0.6. And then all the other expenses cobbled together brings us to an 8.9 recommended increase. I prepared quite a bit of detail. This is a handout you have, but I'll also review it very quickly. So on this chart, you'll see these are all the recommendations and requests from the building administrators. I've added a couple in here as well. You see a column on the far right, the individual making the request, whether it came from myself or principals, our athletic director in a couple of cases. So the top grid basically includes all the positions that are in this proposal. The middle grid details some salary offsets. And then the bottom portion of the chart, the bottom grid, are positions that were requested that are not dollar-wise in the budget. Some of them we will be able to accomplish in other ways, and I will talk about that. So just to kind of take you through this, there's a new elementary position in the budget. That's $113,000. The total costs for all these positions reflect salary and benefits. With benefits, we always assume it's the family package because we can't legally post a job and say, you know, can only hire you if you're not married and don't have kids. We can't do that. So we assume a full package. And then typically with teaching positions, we estimate step 6 or step 7, kind of middle of the step. Again, it's hard to predict. It's sometimes easier to hire an elementary teacher at a lower step. Sometimes other positions in past years, high school chemistry, world language. Typically, people with a lot of experience are coming for those jobs. It depends on the job market. So we kind of go through the middle there with the middle of the master's range and make a guess. Again, this is a forecast. We do have the HR position. We have a draft job description. You have that tonight, too. That was requested. All of the new positions, I provided you with a job description or a draft job description. We're calling that position the Director of Personnel and Performance Management. You can see the cost there for that position. We also are recommending a secondary level special education supervisor. That individual would be assigned, split between the high school and the middle school. You see the cost for that position. That's 2 new administrators. If you look down at the offset area, it's offset by the elimination of what is currently the position is the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and Human Resources. There were a number of conversations with the board over the last 6 months or so about that particular job having a lot of responsibility, carrying a lot of weight, and the request was to look at creating 2 positions and eliminating that position. So you see the offset there. I know a couple of you asked me in your questions about the offset, and the numbers are reflected there for you. We have a sliver of an increase for band and math intervention at Mosier based on enrollment and requested by the principal. The world language teacher, a lot of chatter about that position. I've restored it in this proposal. That would be a position that would go to Mosier School to bring back the French and the Spanish, which at one point, I'll just remind you, was a Board of Ed priority to offer world languages at Mosier School. It was one of the selling points for that elementary school. It was actually one of the board goals was to put that position in. So it was removed last year, not by the board until the council made the final appropriation. That's where it was removed, so it's been restored. You see that the middle school has requested a little bit of a stipend for homework club. We've also put a guidance counselor in for the middle school. We had a voice committee meeting several weeks ago, and there was quite a bit of concern about some of the kids just dealing with emotional distress at the middle school. I spoke to the principal. We currently have 2 middle schools. Jay and I had a conversation about the advantage of having a guidance counselor assigned to each of the 3 grade levels. So this would provide GMS with a guidance counselor for grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. Right now we have 2 counselors at the school sharing the load. We also have a proposal for a social worker Again, I would split that position between the middle school and the high school. Mr. Foti made this request. We have been dealing with some behavioral challenges at the high school. I think along with our move towards implementing restorative practices, getting these kids some additional help with some of the social and emotional issues they're struggling with would be certainly beneficial for the school district. We also, for supervision and safety, are recommending a hall monitor position. It would be offset by the elimination of a building sub at the high school, supplanted by a hall monitor. So it'd be a swap there, but it is a cost, driving the budget up a little bit. A couple of small stipends in here that are student-focused, a dance team coach, a lot of interest in that particular activity, freshman volleyball coach based on the numbers, which are fairly large in volleyball, and then the HOSA stipend. We have a new club focused on health occupations. I think we have 99 kids in that program. Are we represented by that program tonight by anybody here? You guys? There you go. So we're looking at putting that in as well. So the club sponsor gets same stipend as the literary magazine advisor gets. So it's about $1 million, just shy of $1 million in staffing recommendations that are in this budget. You could see that we've offset them. The elimination of the assistant superintendent for personnel and pupil services. We have a reduction in kids requiring PT. So we are looking to reduce one of the PT positions from full-time physical therapy to 0.8. There was no issue with servicing kids with that reduction. We've had a couple of elementary retirements, one that actually 2 people have reached out and indicated their intent to retire. So we do expect to see savings there. Elementary teachers at the top step, we typically do not hire right at the top of the schedule. We have a large volume of teachers who come in for elementary, so I'm pretty confident we'll make some salary adjustments there. And I already talked about the building offset, the hall monitor offset by the elimination of a building sub position at the high school. In terms of the other requests, the Compass program at West Hill, the request was to increase the time for the social worker. If we were able to hire a high school, middle school social worker, we can transfer a part-time person currently split between West Hill and the middle school can be transferred over to West Hill to provide additional support to Compass. There'll be no cost there if we hire the social worker that I referenced earlier. We studied enrollment. I'm sure we'll talk about this tonight. Right now for Mosier School, if we have 17 teachers in the school, we will have to flip-flop. We will have to have 9 teachers in 5th grade. We'll go down to 8 in 4th grade. We'll be within the guidelines. I know there has been some conversation about changing guidelines. For this budget proposal, I've staffed as closely to the guidelines as possible. Understand that the board has the opportunity to talk about that, and potentially add more elementary classroom teachers. That's really happy to have that conversation, but I've tried to staff as closely as possible to the guidelines. Last year, when we restructured MTSS, and that was one of the questions, we had 2 reading teachers at GMS. We have 1 reading teacher there now. Request initially came in to restore that position. We made a transfer to the high school. We didn't have any real MTSS support at the high school. So we have a reading support teacher at each building. We also have tutors and other people in other capacities doing some MTSS stuff. But in terms of reading teachers, 1 at the high school now, 1 at the middle school. In speaking with Jason, he did put that in. I certainly supported that request. However, when we talked about it, the priority was either to restore a special ed teacher or guidance. I think we're going to be able to accomplish both if we go with this budget with a transfer from the high school of a special ed teacher. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. And the guidance counselor is already in the proposed budget. Math specialist and SAT enrichment were not included. Wendy Duran is working closely with John. We do have a math tutor helping with MTSS at the high school, and those were additional requests that I wanted to show you that did not make it into the proposal. So let's talk a little bit about just the new staffing. I kind of broke it out. That's an easier chart. That other chart was very busy, but I wanted you to see everything together. Here is just focused on the new staffing positions. You see the cost laid out clearly for each position, salary, benefits, the FICA, Medicare expenses, and so forth. And you see that it's about $1 million. You see the two offsets, and your net there is $733,000. So if we did no new staffing and left everything the same, that's what that would look like. Budget without any new staffing, again, just to look at this in a different way. So we're asking for an 8.9% increase. The overall cost of all the new staffing is $733,000. If we did no new staffing, we'd still be at a 7.58% budget. So it's still a big number. So the reason we wanted to share this information was to dispel any kind of takeaways tonight that the new staff is driving the budget high. We'd already be at about a 7.6, even leaving the staffing exactly as it is right now. And I'll talk about why it's still at a 7.6, even without any new staff. A little bit more on the staffing. The overall cost for the certified staff is $2.1 million. A lot of that is driven by factors, that are beyond our control. So when we talk about the staff, more than the 5 new positions, the significant driver is the negotiated contracts. General wages are increasing this year of about 3%. The step cost is 1%. And then degree changes. This year, we have a lot of folks who've achieved advanced degrees. They work very hard on those degrees, and those degree changes in and of themselves for existing staff are driving the budget by $363,000. So that's a nice way of looking at it. You can kind of see what it is. The existing staff are driving the budget up $1.7 million. The new positions, another $665,000. See some offsets in there. Some retirements, kind of that net cost coming in at $2.1 million. Non-certified staff, again, kind of break it out for you. Contracted in salary increases, $315,000. The hall monitor position is an offset there. Para-educators also have a contract driving up salary increases about $210,000. That's another negotiated wage. And then we have offsets of $54,000. Another substitute teacher position that's been eliminated, and again, the trade out with a non-certified sub position there. So overall, again, driving to the total increase of about $2.6 million. So there it is for you one more time. Certified staff, $2.1 million. Non-certified, $327,000. Paras and some offsets, $2.6 million on the salary line item. Enrollment is stable. That's a good thing. We're not really dealing with significant spikes or decreases, either of which causes a problem for school districts. We've been very stable in Rocky Hill. You can kind of chart that on your own. These are the NESDEC reports, and we're pretty stable. What we are seeing, though, I've talked about this in the past. I'm optimistic that this is starting to level out in terms of special education and English language learner multilingual enrollment. So you see the historical numbers going back to 2012 and 2013 respectively, kind of skyrocketing over the years. But if you look at the October 1 of 2024, we had 417 special education students. It's dropped by 16. Same thing, the EL numbers dropped off a little, so I'm optimistic that this trend, which was really significantly moving up each year, perhaps is leveling off. One-year data is not enough of a data point. It's certainly not a giant decline, but perhaps we're starting to see a little bit of leveling here, which would possibly be good for the overall school budget to kind of see these numbers level off. Our enrollment continues to remain stable. We have a slight uptick this year, about 30 kids. It's a little more than 1%. And I recall years here before we built Mosier where we were seeing, large increases in enrollment each year. That's all kind of leveled off. We still remain a school district with a high rate of transiency. So when we look at these numbers, We take out the graduating seniors, we take out the new kindergarten kids because they're all incoming, and we take a look at what's going on with that middle number. So you could see that for 2018, we have 218 kids who came in above the kindergarten level. The year before it was 247. In 2023 it was 234. So, but our overall number doesn't change. So there's still over 200 kids each year, not including the kindergarten kids who come in, and roughly 200 who exit. Still fairly high transiency, but the overall number remains stable, suggesting that the in-migration and the out-migration rates are roughly balanced. And this 2,500 and change number has been very significant, stable rather, for the last several years. We haven't seen a lot of variation. So that again bodes well, because when you're having huge spikes in a budget, you need to hire more staff. Conversely, if you see a rapidly declining budget, you're talking about layoffs and consolidations. Either they're both challenging. Stability is typically the preferred model. You also, when you're stable, you don't have to worry about building new facilities. Conversely, you don't have to worry about shutting schools down if your enrollment starts to drop. So I think the stability bodes well for the district, and it's driven largely by that enrollment being level. We do look at the NSDAQ projections pretty carefully. They are projecting over a 3-year period a decrease of 141 kids pre-K through 12. We saw an increase this year of 30, so now I don't know how confident I am in that projection. They look at housing permits, they look at births in town, they look at all kinds of factors, but they are projecting a bit of a decrease. The biggest driver is the birth rate, but we also have a lot of folks who move into town. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. That's not a huge increase if you think, or decrease rather, over a 3-year period. And when you spread that across 13 grade levels, it's fairly minimal, but it's something we'll just have to continue to monitor. Elementary enrollment. This is always a forecast. We think we do a pretty good job estimating where we're going to be. We've added 1 elementary school teacher. These are our projections that we've looked at pretty carefully. I'll draw your attention to a couple of things. So we've added at this point, again, with kindergarten, it's just a guess. We don't know what's going to come in the door. I do want to clarify the fact that I checked with our attorney, double-checked with her. The proposed legislation to not allow 4-year-olds into kindergarten did not pass the state legislature. So we still have to provide the waiver option. We have about 30 kids who wavered in this year. The hard date next year didn't pass as well. Both bills failed the state legislature. So we will be wavering kids in. It's not a huge number, but if you're teaching kindergarten, it's significant to have a 4-year-old in your class, and there's a rationale behind why people proposed the law, but the state ultimately did not, the legislature did not approve it. So we have 30 kids who wavered in this year, meaning they're 4 years old. We do not allow anybody who does not turn 5 by January 1 come in. That's been consistent here with the old law, but I anticipate probably about 30 kids wavering in again. I've already been approached by a few people. So you have some projections there, basically looking at current enrollment and rolling forward. And you'll see that we are right around class size guidelines throughout, a little more favorable in some places. 3rd grade, projecting 89 kids at Stevens School. If we had another teacher, is that something we'd look at? Sure. If kindergarten doesn't come in at 105 and comes in at 93, another teacher would give Stevens the flexibility to move a teacher up, depending on what 3rd grade numbers are. 88 kids, they'd be right on the line for 4 sections. So you can kind of see that. We can certainly come back to it. We have 55 elementary classroom teachers this year, and we are proposing to go to 56. And I understand that the board may want to have conversations about changing these guidelines, certainly within the purview of the board to do that. But from my standpoint, when I'm putting together a $60 million budget and staffing it for you, I attempt to adhere to the guidelines as closely as possible. So that's kind of where that sits, and we can certainly come back. And again, this is a framework for the board to work off of, but I think we give you a pretty good document to start with in terms of the overall budget. Benefits. So we have, you'll see this in the object summary. The health insurance account is going up over 16%. That's consistent with statewide trends. We are with Anthem. We work with Digital One as our vendor. We are at over right around 14%. And then with the new staff, it pushes us above 16 for an increase in health insurance, which is significant, but that's really a function of the marketplace, not anything unique to Rocky Hill. Health insurance costs are just going up very quickly across the board. Tuition is another big driver. I talked about it earlier, $340,000. You can kind of see it split between the public outplacements. Typically, those are your CREC schools like River Street and so forth, and your private, Solterra, some of the other facilities we use. You can see the breakdown between public and private. We kind of give you a little more detail there. I don't get a ton into the detail on the schools because it's a small number of students, and I must protect their confidentiality. Very minimal amounts for the VOAG tuition, and the adult ed rate went up $1,000. We don't have our own adult ed program. We piggyback with Middletown. They bill us each year so residents in town can pursue adult education in Middletown, and they have been very reasonable over the years, trying to keep costs very stable for us. So where are we in spending? So we slipped another 2 spots. Last year we were 17th in the district reference group. Now we're down to 19th. And you can kind of see where we are. This is our per pupil expenditure for the most recent data published by the state, which is for the 24-25 school year. So we slipped back. I think next year, you know, regardless of what you do with this budget, we're going to probably drop even further because of the 3.6 budget last year. So we're kind of falling down a little bit there. And again, I'm a little bit alarmed. I prefer to see this a little bit closer to the average for the DIRG. It does tell you that we're efficient, but then when we did some what ifs. So if the board approved and it got through the council an 8.9% budget as a thought exercise, if we increase the rest of the district reference group by 4%, where would that take us? And it would bump us up 2 spots. Just want to hammer that home again. That's with a 9% increase in Rocky Hill, estimating 4 for everybody else. We'd slide up 2 spots, estimating 3 for everybody else, which is pretty conservative. We move all the way up to 16. So I think the argument can be made that a 9% budget may seem like a large number, but historically, all the funds that have been saved year after year, year over year, certainly could justify a jump in the budget to keep us as competitive as possible. With that being said, despite those obstacles, we have the best test scores in the DIRG yet again in mathematics. That's the overall district performance index. That's all the grades that are tested in mathematics. Most recent data available, you see that we are number 1 in our district reference group. So our kids and our staff continue to produce excellent results. Same for ELA, which is English Language Arts. Again, our literacy scores are number 1 in the district reference group, despite the pretty conservative budgeting process here. So that's something to be proud of, but also we do need to think about how far down we keep sliding on the overall expense ranking. Special ed expenses, this has not changed from last year. And in the interest of transparency, here's the email. We asked the state when they would be updating that slide, and they informed us that the person who updates the report is on extended leave. So we're trying to figure out what we're doing right now. Just want you to see that because I believe in transparency, and it's important. So unfortunately, we don't get the same courtesy from the state when we owe them something, but that's okay. Nothing we can say other than share the information with you. If that slide comes in, we will provide it to you. But 2 years ago, 23-24, our special ed efficiency was 4th in the district reference group. Scott, thanks for sending that email. Appreciate it. So where are we? I talked about this, I talk about it every year. In terms of our spending, we are ranked 77th. So the ANGLIC is the relative wealth. They look at things like median household income, grand list, a whole bunch of factors, and basically Rocky Hill is 77th in the state in terms of overall wealth out of 169 municipalities. So top 46, kind of middle of the pack wealth, D, which is, you know, kind of where we would expect to be. But our per pupil expenditures are down at 126. So we're not. You could make an argument that we could be spending more on education and still be pretty consistent with our peers. Certainly, we're efficient. I don't have any concerns about that. I mean, council's talking about an efficiency study. Maybe there's more efficiencies to be found, but given the high test scores and the relatively conservative spending approach, I'm not sure we're going to find a lot of efficiencies, but certainly happy to look at it. The state of Connecticut, just to come up to the DIRG, the difference for the district reference group would be a $5 million increase. Coming up to the state median spending, we would have added $9 million to the budget in 24-25 just to be at the state level. So I think, again, it underscores that the taxpayers in Rocky Hill are getting a very good return on the educational investments here. Our schools achieve well above average results at a significantly below average cost. So happy to take any particular questions you may have on the slides.
Ms. Manella.
Dr. Zito, thank you for the slides. They were very comprehensive. If you can just go over the slide with the number of students in the overall district, it was about, what, 2,500?
Yeah, 2560 something, yep.
And I know there's questions as to classroom sizes. Why are they so big? Can you just go over that? If that number is flat, has been flat, can you just explain the reason why our classroom sizes are larger, have been larger the past couple of years?
Yeah, so I think class sizes have crept up a little bit. I haven't done a ton of analysis on this. These are the projections. We did go over, I don't have the October 1 enrollment report with me. We could certainly look at that on Thursday if you want to. Class sizes are over in a couple of spots at Stevens School by a fraction, not significantly over. I think in kindergarten, one or two kids over. There's a couple of spots in the elementary schools where we are a smidgen over. Not anything that's wildly off the number, but in some cases, you know, one or two students. We talked about this in detail. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, though, when you look at those charts, you need to remember that within each of the schools at each grade level, there are special education students who spend the vast majority of their day with their case manager. Mm-hmm. So you have to, I mean, I look at everything, right? We look at all of it. So if we see a kindergarten class with 21 or a second grade class with 23 kids, it's very likely that within that grade level, there may be a kid in that class or two kids in that class that don't spend too much time in that classroom. Still important to look at. We just look at all the data. We talked about that in the fall. But I think, you know, what's been happening, to be candid with you, over the years, like last year, we eliminated several positions at the elementary level as enrollment has been declining just a tad in order to keep through attrition. So we've never had to lay anybody off in the 14 years I've been here due to the budget, but we have had to do some maneuvers to keep everybody employed. And what happens when you do layoffs through attrition is you will typically see an increase in class size. So there's been some of that. And again, these are our best estimates right now on projections. And again, that's debatable. My job right now is to come in at your guidelines that you as a board, or perhaps not you as an individual board member, but the board set several years ago with the guidelines you see reflected in the bottom quadrant of this slide. And we do our best to stick to those. So, you know, you look at Mosier, we project under 25. The board's cap is 25. So that's you know, you could certainly make an argument that smaller class sizes would be good. We also have the best test scores in the DIRG, so I think the kids are achieving. It's really a question you need to wrestle with as a board. Could I support lowering those? Certainly, but the board worked on this I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, and made those changes. And our scores have been pretty strong regardless. So I'm not sure it's having a significant impact on learning. It might be harder on teachers. I grant you that. If you're dealing with a second grade class of 21 kids versus 16, that's a big deal, completely. So it's a conversation that the board can have. It's also, you've got to balance that with financial and fiscal realities. So those are the issues, you know. Everybody wants to live in a beautiful home. Sometimes you've got to make some sacrifices elsewhere. It's an economic decision more than anything else. I don't think that the quality of the education we're offering is suffering dramatically based on the high test scores. But I could certainly make an argument that reducing class size a little would be okay and something for the board to talk about. And there's a cost, and to have a full conversation about what that cost entails as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to highlight why we wanted to add in a couple of more
Yeah,
teachers.
yeah, and I've added one because I'm following the guidelines, but again, you know, policy committee would be a place where you might want to do that, or convene policy and curriculum and have a conversation about class size guidelines and where they might need to go, and we could look at where they were before they were changed. I want to say the change was at least 10 years ago,
I believe the last time was 2017.
okay, 8 years ago. It's been a while.
I mean, obviously, it's a hot topic. We are discussing it. I think our next policy meeting, which will be in February, so it is going to be coming up soon for us to discuss and look back at any information that you can
Yeah.
give us prior to 2017.
Yeah, we can give you
because
the-
I think
the
the only person
guidelines
here at that
before they
time
were
was
changed.
Ms. Manella.
Yeah,
The rest of us were new.
I think, yeah, Maria might have been the only individual on the board at the time we had that conversation.
And I do recall the classroom sizes were a lot smaller when my kids were
Yeah,
younger.
yeah, I
for
think
sure.
that's
And
fair. I mean,
could
we
see
could,
the-
we could pull historical data, so
yeah.
we're not guessing.
And I
We can
could see
look
the
at-
numbers creeping up, so.
We could pull reports from 10, 12 years ago and take a look at what the class sizes were too. I have no problem doing that and sharing that information. It's all on file and we can pull it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just build off of
Yes, Ms. Dudanowitz.
that really quickly? Thank you, Dr. Zito. This was wonderful. I'm just looking at, again, the class sizes, and I'm just trying to, maybe a request that we can make prior to the policy committee meeting is to provide the breakdown of each class at each grade at each school to understand how many are in each class, and that might be helpful for our conversation regarding class sizes. And then I just also am curious, you mentioned the kindergarten age change.
Yep.
And how approximately 30 waived in. Do we know how many did not make that waive in, and how that will affect our enrollment for next year? And if there's been any consideration?
We typically only know when someone registers a kid. You know, we don't go around and like try to estimate who lives in a house that's 4 years old or 5. So unless they've actively reached out to us to try the enrollment process, we do have a handful of families. I can try to get you some information from Mr. Kennison. I don't have it with me, that inquired about registering a 4-year-old and then realized, you know, maybe it's best to wait a year. I know the principals had a handful of conversations with parents. One of the things we have said to people is, you know, if we feel like it's a kid who might, you know, be a late December 4-year-old and the parent's not sure, we've said, you know, if you wave the kid in, we're not going to really be positive about a retention conversation the following year. You need to make sure the kid is ready for kindergarten.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, but I think there's also
Yeah.
maybe some estimates that we could potentially make
There's what?
using, potentially some estimates that we could make using census data and the birth cohort for our town, and
Yeah.
how we're thinking about those numbers, both comparing this current school year and then comparing to the next school year. Just understanding that class size is wavering close to, I think, the high end, right, for kindergarten, knowing that each kindergarten teacher has the benefit of having a para, but then using that information to help us think about what that budget is going to be for next year, and just being as realistic as possible for what that kindergarten age change could mean, knowing that we had potentially a lower enrollment this year with a potentially higher enrollment for the next school year.
Yeah, we can look at it. I think the status quo, unless the legislature changes, is going to keep the numbers stable, because we've seen, you know, Stevens, for example, roughly 100 kids, I think, the last couple of years. We'll get you some more information on it.
That'd be
I,
helpful.
I don't think things, if the big change will be if the law actually passes and they block the Burr babies from coming in, then we will definitely see a drop the first year. But once that law is in, you'll see a corresponding bounce the next year. And I think the number will just stabilize over time. You'll just have a new cutoff date. So right now, I don't see a big change. We'll monitor that closely, and we'll get you some information if we can. It'd be a good conversation at the policy
Yeah,
level.
no, I think that would be a great conversation to have in policy. Thank you.
Ms. Tucker?
Are we gonna talk about more the additional staffing sheet that you gave? Because I have questions on that, but I don't know if I should wait till another time.
Yeah, I'm happy to take questions. I mean, the first part of the presentation was just to go through this and take questions on the slide. So if you have a question on the slide, that's great, you can ask me.
Well, I guess it is on the slide, but
So-
are we gonna talk, we're gonna be talking about
We could talk
staffing
about, this is
more.
your, but you guys drive this. I'm here to assist and provide as much information as
We're gonna dig
possible.
into all this, I mean, right?
So, yeah,
So-
it's fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter to
We
me
could
when
talk
we dig
about
in.
this now. I mean, you've got, I think, we're gonna go till about 8:30, maybe 9 tonight, hopefully 8:30. Come back Thursday. We've got, and keep in mind too, you're not locked in to the 3 nights. By charter, you have till mid-March to adopt. So it is not unheard of for the board chair to schedule additional budget workshops after the first 3 sessions. This is your budget. It should be a process that you take seriously. So I'm in no rush at all. It's not me. I don't have to worry about the snow tonight either. So, I can sleep till maybe 5 tomorrow.
I just wanna go in order, that's all. So if it makes sense.
I don't-
Whatever.
It's fine. So are we sticking on just the slides currently then? Or
I mean,
wanna
yeah.
go back to the
Ms. Tucker
staffing
asked about this
recommendations?
particular slide on the staffing.
Slide, but
let's-
So-
it's a
Yep,
handout.
let's
a lot
talk
on that
about it.
slide.
Sure.
A lot.
We'll
This
start
could
with
take
staffing
3 hours.
recommendations.
Yeah. So yes,
Yeah,
ask.
that's fine.
Okay.
Let's
I'm just gonna ask the big question.
Started.
So, we have the superintendent position that's gonna roll off,
Yeah,
potentially.
the assistant
right?
superintendent, correct.
Yep.
Yep,
And so we're adding HR director and then special education supervisor. Those 2 positions replace that one,
correct.
correct?
Yep,
So I just want to make sure I understand. So the assistant superintendent was doing both HR and special education for 187, but then the HR director, which is a step down,
yep.
taking essentially half, I don't know if it's half the job, but it's only an $8,000 decrease in salary?
Right, that's right, yeah. I think that was a huge job. You don't find that in many districts. It was a function of COVID. And I remember vividly, it was an issue of, we had a director of special education and student services during COVID. Things got really crazy. One of the issues was we did not have a functioning human resources department. The board was limited. At the time, they promoted that person in that role to assistant superintendent in the middle of the COVID crisis. And frankly, I think Amy Stevenson was very strong on her job, did a good job. And had a lot of skills, but it was a ton of work. And I think over the years, many board members had said to me, I'm worried about that position. I think it's too much. We had that conversation last year. The board was very clear in the sentiment to look at creating 2 positions. It's a little more consistent with what you see in other districts. You typically don't see HR and special ed combined on one person's portfolio. Remember, for years, this district didn't have a functioning HR department, didn't have it. And during COVID, I said to the board, there's only so much I can do. And these, remember the COVID dashboard, we had to certify that every single person had a vaccine. It's an enormous amount of work. Contact tracing every weekend. Principals know, a lot of them were here. Measuring desks on Saturdays.
Right.
Putting people on quarantine, ensuring that every single employee had a shot or by executive order from the governor, they were going to be terminated. It's a ton of work that was going on at that very intense time in our country. And that position was a function of necessity without a ton of money. So that's what happened.
Okay. And, may I continue? An HR director, are there different levels that we could consider? Like, is there an HR manager
So
that
you
would
have
create?
you have a draft job description in front of you that I think I had shared with the board in the fall, calling a position Director of Personnel and Performance Management. You see a draft job description in there. You've got like 5 or 6, I think I was asked for all of them for the new positions. And that's, pretty detailed on what that job entails. I would recommend that you go with that. I think that person can work collaboratively with Mr. Rand on professional development, can do all of the stuff we do with team mentoring, FMLA, the day-to-day work with human resources. The other thing that the board is looking at is some of the diversity work through the Voice Committee. And I think that particular type of work can also be wrapped into this job. So that's how I framed it. I know I shared these job descriptions in the fall with you. We didn't get into detail, but you have it tonight. And, ultimately, I can only make recommendations. Ultimately, the board has to decide what it wants to do.
Just to clarify.
Go ahead, Mr. Clemens.
Under job descriptions, is it the Director of Personnel and Performance Management?
Yeah.
Is it the HR?
Yeah, that would be the HR position, yes. Yep.
Mr. Kosker.
Yeah, if we could just stick on this one. Thank you, Amber, for bringing it up. So I think this slide could take us some time. Just to understand both positions, so the HR director would report to you, just like the assistant superintendent, so that part, right?
Right.
And they would have no direct reports to them necessarily, or would they? I guess it's a question.
No,
Would
so
they
if you
have
look at the
direct-
job description, the person might be working with some administrators, definitely would oversee the HR coordinator. But, I'm framing it as a position that would require an 092
Right, I see that.
administrator certification, so that the person, I think we'd get a higher quality candidate for that position if we do that as well. In terms of TRB eligibility, I could see the individual overseeing in some capacity, some of the administrators, perhaps even some teachers. We have right now assistant superintendents who do oversee a handful of teachers in the district as well for the evaluation process. So that's how I view it. Again, it's really up to the board to determine.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then also, sort of to Amber's point, is like what other staff in central office, just to give us an understanding, work on HR stuff? I know there's other staff that work.
The HR coordinator.
HR coordinator. Can you just briefly describe that?
We
and
can
what
bring
that-
you a job description next time for that position.
Or just, that's one person, it's a half a person, it's just give me a
It's a
sense.
full-time person. Gina
Full-time
Munch is in that role.
Right,
And she's a very busy lady. All the onboarding for new staff.
Right, okay.
The day-to-day management of staff attendance, the time system, issues with payroll, salary increases, coaching, hiring, a lot of kind of the minutia.
Yeah.
It's more than just administrators and teachers. We have over 600 employees in the district, a lot of part-time folks. You're dealing with a lot of issues, sick leave requests, FMLA paperwork. We've seen a huge spike in employees eligible for family medical leave since COVID. A lot goes on with that. So it's a very busy job. And and we've had that, every district I've worked in has had an HR coordinator. In Simsbury, I had that model. I was the HR director. I had an HR coordinator. It's flat-out work all day long. Doesn't stop.
Cool, thank you. And then I was also going to ask a question on the special education, hold on, let me get it straight, supervisor, if that's okay.
Yep.
So again, just understanding that person would also report to you, and then
No,
do they have
that
direct
person
reports?
would
I just want
report
to
to the
get, because I know we have
director.
other special education
Yeah.
supervisors in district, and it's a lot going
Yeah,
on, and,
so the director of special education reports to me.
right,
This person would report to the
Director.
director of special education, and in some sense would also have kind of a quasi dual report to the principals at the secondary schools. It's a
Right.
similar setup to what we put in place in the elementary schools, except in the elementary schools, they're split assistant principal, special ed supervisor.
right,
This would be a person solely focused on special ed, split between the high school and the middle school.
right.
Large volume of PPTs, other issues that come up, a lot of emails from special needs parents.
Yeah.
Very, very busy.
Okay, so similar to those half positions, like you say, at the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
schools,
but-
kind of
but
a dual
it
reporting to
provides
this.
that
Yeah.
on-site special education support for
Yeah.
GMS in the high school, which
All right,
we
perfect.
currently don't have. And, Jesse Herman spread very thin. in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
role. So
Okay.
I think it's a good model to go with. They're not assistant superintendencies. They're reflected that way salary-wise. I would have to sit down with the administrator union and look at the special ed position. The HR position would be non-union typically. It's an exempt position in most districts. It's not part of the bargaining group. The special ed supervisor That is a position that's currently in the contract. We just have to sit down and negotiate that with the union.
Awesome, thank you, Jess.
Any further discussion on that? Ms. Morfea?
I just have one quick question, just to clarify. All the teachers that we have retiring, and I know there was a couple teachers that left in the middle of the year, some special ed teachers, are all those teachers getting, just for clarity purposes, are they all getting replaced, or, I think you mentioned one of the special ed isn't getting replaced?
Right, in this budget proposal, there's an offset, but that's basically a function of somebody at Top Step leaving and an anticipation that we bring in a less experienced person, so there's a drop in salary. But there's no proposal in this current iteration of this budget to not replace retirees. We want to fully replace the retirees.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Mr. Clemens?
Yeah, same slide, and salary offsets. You talk about eliminating a building substitute at the high school. I don't remember the number, but I'm pretty sure last meeting, the report from Dr. Nozick was we were running a deficit in building substitutes currently for this year.
Yep,
And we
yep.
want to eliminate one.
It's an offset to get the hall monitor. So you still have a body there. The hall monitor can cover classes as long as the hall monitor is out in the hall, so it can kind of serve the same function. If there's a real shortage, the hall monitor can go and cover a class. Right now, you know, when those building subs aren't super busy, they're covering halls as well. So it's an offset for supervision, but, you know, again, we're at 8.9%. So we can you know, put a building sub back in. I'm not going to argue with you, but I think
Well, no, I'm
it's-
saying
yeah.
if we're running a deficit now, I mean, eliminating one just doesn't seem, I mean, since we're running into a deficit again next year.
The request for some more supervision. The hall monitor can do a lot of the same things that the building sub does. You know, once the kids are in class, if we're short, we can, our high school does a pretty good job covering for the most part. That building sub is, we would take that from the high school. I wouldn't be looking to remove that from other schools. And that's a trade-off, and that's a conversation I had with Mr. Fode.
Just on that same point, just to is it, Jess?
Hi, Mr.
Just to stick to the same thing, since you brought it up, Brian, because I was curious about that. So if we eliminate the building sub, I get it, save 28 grand. Hall monitor, I get that. What would the cost be, or, and we can do the math, but if you had to replace that person by calling daily subs every day, right, potentially, hypothetically, for 180 days, and you call and spend, I don't remember what the dollar is, it's been a while since I worked as a substitute, but 100, 120 bucks a day, I don't know, something in that
I
ballpark?
think it's, is it one, what is it today, Scott?
Ballpark.
We'll find out for you. I don't want to, if I don't have the number in front of me.
Okay, so whatever that
It's-
number
I
is,
think
we
it-
can do
I-
the math, but at
150, is that right? 154?
154, so that's roughly $27,000.
Yeah.
So it's about the same price, basically. So it's about the
It
same
is,
price.
yeah.
If we had to, again, just to your point, Brian, about the deficit, because I was thinking the same thing, like, wait, we're running a deficit, what's up with that? Well, you can still get the subs. You're still going to need the subs in the building in that day if there's 3 or 4 teachers absent or whatever. So hypothetically, if we need them for 180 days, it's just going to go on another line item, right? Because I believe there's a line item in the budget for daily building subs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right, substitutes. So that's separate from our building sub full-time
Right.
teacher, full-time building sub, excuse me. Right, so it's like, I didn't look at that line item because
So
I don't remember all the
you
numbers,
know,
but like, that might be increasing by a little bit this year, or could
keeps the
potentially to
same-
cover that.
It keeps the same number of bodies in the building at the high school, is what it does.
Yeah.
It's not an increase in bodies. Trade-off is a hall monitor for a building sub. So, you know, that was a request from the high school, and that's what I put in. Valid point.
Yeah, no, I think,
We
I
can
just, it's
increase
just
the
helpful
sub,
to
you know,
understand, like, hey, if we
all you-
do,
Again, this is a framework.
right,
This
we
is
do
not,
dump
you know,
that, and you end up having to hire somebody every day. Okay,
Yeah.
it costs you 27 or 28 grand roughly to hire somebody.
And if we're having a good year and people aren't getting sick, you know, sometimes we see
You save a
more
little
people
bit.
coming to
It-
work and
right.
less
It-
of a need. So
It's 100 days
you know,
instead of
can't forget
180,
that.
then you save a little money.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And we
again,
can
this
look at
is a
that line
framework
item
for
on the
you guys to
budget
work off of.
to
This is
see
your
why,
framework.
if that was in deficit this year, like, what do we have to do to that to not make it in deficit for this coming year? So, anyway, thanks.
Keep in mind, we have accounts, I mean, health insurance this year is another account that's running a deficit. Like, we have to work through that each year. It's a fluid, you know, document. We have these conversations every year. 55 going to $60 million. There are line items that sometimes run under, and we just have to adjust at the end of the year. We do that. We will not run a deficit. So these are trade-offs and conversations, and that really, the way I framed it is one position in the building, one out. Look, it's at the high school. I'm not focused on the other schools with that.
Ms. Tucker?
On the same topic of the hall monitor, I was just curious of the need and why the request is there, and maybe that's, I think it's an appropriate question, but is, at the same time, does the SRO, does she walk the halls at all during the day? Or
The
is it just-
SRO is not for enforcement of school rules, to
Okay.
be clear. The SRO is there primarily for the safety of our students and our staff. They serve a very important presence to respond to crisis situations. Sarah Raymond's our high school SRO. She does an excellent job. All of them do. We're very pleased with Keith Baker at the middle school, and we're very pleased with Officer Carroll. But their primary enforcement is not hallway monitor, get to class, where's your pass. That's not the role of the school resource officer. They're there to be a deterrent to anybody that might have a bad idea. They're there to enforce the law. If a law is broken, they're there to keep our kids safe. They're not really there to follow kids down the hallway and tell kids to go to class. It's a very different function. And I wouldn't want to ask them to be the hall monitor or run in-school suspension or do those types of functions. That's not what they're there for.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, just sticking on the hall monitor. We're on a roll. I got nowhere to be tonight, by the way, everyone. So, is there that's a job that would be posted? I mean, I see the job description, which I greatly appreciate. So, thank you, Jess, and thank you, Dr. Zito. That would be just posted. It's not like we have someone in mind. I know we often do this transfer situation and
Post every one of these positions. If they're approved, they'll be posted, and people have to apply for them.
okay. I wasn't sure because I know sometimes we talk about transfers when there's cutbacks and stuff like that. It's not
There
like the
will be-
building
I'm
sub
sure
is going
there
to
will be
transfer to
current
that.
employees that would apply from
Right.
any of these positions.
Right.
You know, if you look at for example, the teacher's contract requires me to post all the teaching positions per contract, but we have, we have a part-time band teacher. If that .2 gets posted, I'm assuming that teacher who's part-time is going to apply for the increase in FTE.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't make that person apply, but my assumption would be that that person might. Same thing with the math position. World language, I mean, all of these positions would be posted, obviously
Okay.
the administrator position, so everything gets posted.
I just wanted to be clear.
Tom,
'cause-
even to the level of the stipends get
Yeah,
posted.
sure. No, I just want to be clear because the eliminate building sub, add
Yeah.
hall monitor. It's just
we
there's
would
a
post the hall
logical
monitor.
thought
Yeah.
that it might
Yeah.
move over to that spot.
No,
So
it'd be posted, and there
in-
could be a lot of applicants.
in with the breakdown that you have for staffing by school, which is super helpful, by the
Yep.
way. There's like a 0.5 under pupils personnel services. I think that's no, that's not that. My bad. Where
High
is it?
school, middle school, on your sheet, you might see.
Yeah, where's the hall monitor land? I guess is that
0.5.
question on that
It's
sheet.
on the high school sheet. I don't have it in front of
Okay,
me. but
all
I-
right.
it's
So
on there.
somewhere in there's an ad.
It's on
We'll
support
see it later.
personnel.
We'll see it
when we
later,
get to
okay.
the-
I just was looking for that one
No,
ad because I
it's
couldn't see it,
reflected
didn't
in
make
there.
sense. I saw half there and I was confused. Originally, I was like, 41 grand for half, that's a job I might apply for if it's 82 for a hall monitor, so
You'll
I
have
was
to
ready.
resign from the board.
That's okay, I can do that. No, anyway, I was wondering and I was like, wait, is that half a time or full time? Now I see it's a full-time FTE at 41, which is a good deal. Security district, okay, I do see it down there. Thank you, Kristen. All right, I think that's it for now on the hall monitor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Manella.
No, it's not, that's not it for the
That's
hall
not-
monitor.
that's not
I
it
have
for
one-
me.
I just have a really quick comment. I fully support the hall monitor, 110% behind Mr. Foti. I was on a subcommittee at the end of last year where I actually saw a video and saw something a fight that broke out in the high school at the end of the year, at the end
Yeah.
of the school year. And we had our own staff coming and breaking up the fight. So if you guys, were ever privy to that video, you would fully support this hall monitor. And I'm so thankful to our staff because they really put, themselves, they jumped in and they stopped the fight quickly. So I fully support it. So if anybody has any qualms about it, just. just ask Mr. Fode about it, and I'm sure he'll let you know.
Any other questions or concerns about staffing recommendations currently on the slide that we're on?
I have one more.
Go ahead, Ms. Tucker.
Well, first, the positives. I'm excited for the dance team coach. I'm excited for the freshman volleyball coach. I actually requested to have the freshman volleyball team this year, so I'm excited that that could be potential for future students. I do want to talk about the world language teacher, maybe briefly. I fully support the boards, or the prior boards, wanting world language at the Mosher level. Is this person going to be, or is this teacher going to, is it going to be the same way as it was before? So the way I understood it is the students received 30 minutes of world language a week, or I think it's like a 4-day rotation.
Yeah, it's on a rotation.
Right,
Yep.
so they get 30
Yep.
minutes every 4 days, which it is giving them exposure to the language, which is good. I'm not sold yet that that's the best use of our dollar. If there's a way to give them a little bit more exposure, I know I could not try to understand a language with 30 minutes every
Yeah.
once. It's
So, I understand the point. There are places where they have what are called immersion schools, where you go in as a kindergarten kid and your teacher is speaking Spanish all day. And these are, non-native speakers who go in, and it's a Spanish teacher, starting in kindergarten, first grade. We don't have that here. The intent of the Mosher program is exposure. That's the word you used, and you're using it correctly. It's to generate some excitement. It's to develop a level of appreciation for the fact that English is not the only language spoken on the planet. We offer French and Spanish. The goal, is exposure. I don't expect students to become fluent, and they're not going to become fluent in 2 years. But what we do hope is it sparks some excitement, gives them some very basic conversational skills in those languages, and hopefully lights a spark so that when they get to middle school, particularly once they move into 7th grade, they can, I really like Spanish. I had a great experience. It's something I want to do, and now I can start to really approach it. At the culmination of the K-12 experience, we do have the dual language diplomas, and we do have some kids each year who are able to graduate and demonstrate proficiency in a language other than English. So that's the goal, and that's, I think, why the board put it in. The board also understood that some of the surrounding towns, namely Glastonbury, start their world language program in first grade. So that was a big goal for the board, and at the time when Mosher was built, one of the areas that the board aggressively pursued was putting world language, knowing that with only one teacher, it's impossible to do much more than put that person on the rotation and have those kids see that teacher, 30 minutes a week, something like that. And it's remember, they're getting exposure to French and to Spanish at Mosher, a little kind of toe in the water. That's all it is. To become proficient in a language, particularly once you're even in 4th or 5th grade, is difficult, and it takes a lot of effort, time, a lot of study, a lot of practice in the target language, exposure in the target language, and that's not the goal. The goal is not to become fluent. The goal is to expose. So it's a philosophical conversation. I think it's important. I thought the board at the time made the right decision, and I personally was not pleased to see it go, but I also understood the realities of our budget situation last year. And if you recall, you were on the board at the time, Mr. Tucker. It was a very good conversation, but it was an unpleasant conversation over $650,000, and ultimately that was one of the positions that went away.
Thank you.
Ms. Dudanowitz.
Yeah, just before we move from the staffing requests, just a question around the no-cost requests down at the bottom that
Yep.
did not make it into the budget.
Yep.
Is there a reason? Like, I understand maybe the compass is
Sure.
dependent on the hiring of that social worker at the secondary level. So if that happens, is it assumed then that that social worker for Compass then would make it into the budget at no
then
cost?
we would be able to increase the social worker time. So if the top part of the chart gets approved, and the board approves the hiring of a social worker to be shared between the high school and the middle school.
Yep.
Essentially, the middle school stays whole. They don't gain. We would transfer, but they don't lose either. They keep a social worker and they get a guidance counselor under this proposal. So there's a gain there for the guidance counselor. They don't lose any social work time. The existing social worker split between the middle school and West Hill goes into Compass full-time. So with that approval, the middle school stays whole, West Hill increases social work time, but keep in mind, I'm also asking for a guidance counselor for the middle school. So they'll still have additional support for kids.
Correct. That's kind of where I'm going next.
Yep.
Just thinking about the conversation that we had at the curriculum committee meeting regarding MTSS supports, what got cut last year, supports moving forward. Can that guidance counselor provide instructional support to the students at GMS?
It's
And
more of the
if not,
social
what's our-
emotional, they help with the
what's our
scheduling,
plan?
but it's more of the social emotional learning with the kids. It's not as much on the academic side per se.
So do we think that that is something that we should be thinking about and considering as we move forward with this budget? Not saying that, we're going to consider the reading teacher in like this top chart, but just knowing that very real, very like to life conversation that we had during the curriculum meeting, I feel like this is a big gap.
Yeah. So you can add a reading teacher. I called the principal. You see the notes on there. We're being as transparent as we could be. Jay's here. He can speak for himself, but his comment to me was the priority would be the special ed teacher or a guidance counselor. We have a proposal for both. The other thing that we talked about was looking at changing the model in the middle school, but they don't want to change the team structure. Based on the enrollment, the middle school could probably serve all the sixth graders on smaller teams. There might be some challenges there, particularly with the science classrooms, but that could potentially free up a teacher. But the sense we got was that the team structure at the middle school is the preferred model for that staff, so I didn't mess with it. So with all those trade-offs, and I called, Jason, we had a good conversation. He said the preference really is to restore a special ed teacher and bring a guidance counselor. We wrote it right on there, higher priority. So again, it's all about trade-offs. If you want to add a reading teacher, I'm not going to argue with you. It's another $113,000.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just trying to
Yep.
understand it for
Yeah, well,
myself as
okay.
a newbie here. So when you refer to the special education teacher for GMS, are you talking about the supervisor that's in that
No.
upper chart?
No,
Which
so what's
position
going
are
on
you
is
referring to?
But we have, we would make a transfer from the high school. We've tried for the last 2 years to run an alternative school program. It's currently being run by a special ed teacher at the high school right now. The enrollment is very, very small. It was larger last year. It's declined significantly. So what I would look at doing is just keeping the high school with 7 special ed teachers, closing that program because it's so small, making sure those kids still get their help at the high school, and reassigning a high school special ed teacher back to GMS.
So that would be a no cost.
GMS's enrollment in special ed is going from about 63 kids up to 77 kids with IEPs. So I think that I do need to make the move for the teachers.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm just wondering if for both like ease of understanding that whole like shift, if it makes sense for us to add that special ed shift from the high school to GMS in this bottom chart where we have the other no cost line items, just to make it clear as to what the plan is.
Yeah, I think
to address
that's
that.
reflected later on, but Scott, I believe that is reflected later on in the charts. Right? Yeah, but this is just the budget presentation. We're going to get into the book as well. I think you'll see that transfer reflected in the budget book.
Okay,
Okay?
I haven't yet, but looking forward to where.
Ms. Morfea.
Dr. Zito, can you just remind me, pre-COVID? Pre-COVID, Amy was the HR director.
No,
I'm sorry, Amy was special ed director.
correct.
And then there was no assistant superintendent. And
Correct.
there is no HR coordinator.
That is correct.
So can you remind me how, so the special ed director was the highest position for special ed at the time?
Mhm.
Okay, and then, can you remind me how HR worked back then?
HR was split between the person that was basically my assistant, did some of the work. The assistant superintendent for finance did some of the work. It was not ideal in terms of managing FMLA accurately and things like that. There were some technical issues that we ran into some trouble with. We're functioning better now with a full-fledged, and we went through this at the time. We were the only district without a human resources department in the area of all districts our size. So it was kind of an antiquated model. We did the best we could, but I think we improved it dramatically by creating a human resources department.
Dr. Zito, I just want to apologize because it is on the chart. I just missed it.
Okay.
The special ed teacher, the zeroed out. So
That's fine.
I just want to flag that.
It's that's fine. If we
They all
certainly
blend
make
together
mistakes too.
after a
so,
while, you
yeah.
know?
Mr. Kosker.
I have lots more questions on this. I know we're going to dig into some of this, but
Yeah.
the staffing sheet is a big one, obviously.
It is.
So quickly on the world language, since that was discussed a bit, so I'm for that generally. I get it. I mean, my kids came after Mosher. Both of my children came after that as students, so they didn't get the benefit of that. They started in 6th or later, so I think it's great. The hall monitor, when I was asking those questions, is not that I am for it, actually. I worked in a high school a number of years ago that had 2 hall monitors, and it was a smaller high school than Rock Hill High School, so I certainly see the benefit of having that person in that position that's roaming the halls and doing the job that's laid out here, so I think that's great. I guess I have no other questions right now on it. I guess I understand the HR director. Well, no, we're going to be digging into this in detail as we go through this book, so I guess I'll pause on that for now then. I'm good, thanks.
Can I just ask the world language teacher at Mosher? We do not, that person will be only at Mosher. They don't need to
Correct.
go over to GMS or the high school or
No.
anything like that to fill
Full-time at
any
Mosher,
classes.
that's how it was set up, that's how we were staffing it. And then when we had to readjust after the council appropriation last year, we had a retirement, and I moved that person who was at Mosher into a secondary position, actually split between the middle school and the high school, to fill a vacancy created by retirement, and we consolidated that position. Again, I'd given you guys a list of options to get to the $650,000 reduction from the board's approved budget. That was one of the offerings to get there, and at the time, it saved about $110,000.
I actually did remember my question, I'm sorry. When you're
ahead,
when
Mr.
you're done.
Kosker.
Well, no, there was the 2, because somebody brought up the band teacher, math interventionist, so at point 2, and I see the band is 0.6 now, it'll go to 0.8.
Yep.
And by adding 13 grand, so that's like equivalent of a $68,000 full-time job.
Yeah.
Again, benefits are taken care of someone else, so they get benefits at 0.6, so they'll just continue to get benefits at 0.8, that doesn't change
Correct.
in terms of that. And
They'll
then on
pay a
the
little less. The part-time staff pays a slightly different. the
different rate,
calculation's a little different.
reimburse,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then on the math interventionist, so the 0.2 is, so it's going from a 0.8
Yep,
to a full, in that
Yep.
case?
yep.
Okay, so that's 21 grand, so that's equivalent of like 107, so like full, that's a certified position, the math interventionist?
Math intervention and band are both certified.
Oh, both certified?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, such a difference in salary there.
Experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's based on current staffing.
Okay, fair enough,
So
thanks.
the music teacher's less experienced.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fredo.
Any other questions or concerns? No? Yeah, in the future, yes. Oh, no, this is an ongoing conversation. It's okay. Mr. Addy, would you like to jump in?
Let me just, Scott, just for detail, the math is currently 0.6 or 0.8? Where's Thomas? It's a 0.6, okay. So they're both, so I was right, they're both 0.6.
Okay.
Yep, yep. 0.6 each one.
Mr. Addy?
All right, right, thank you. No, this is a lot of information to digest, and I appreciate the detail. Is it possible, and I hate saying this, but in case hard decisions we have to make, is it possible to rank these positions based on need versus want? Just in case it comes down to having to make a difficult decision. Just would like to know that from you. That's all. Not right now, but
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, you could also decide which requester you like the best and rank order it that way. You could see the names on the right-hand side.
I think the world language
So,
teacher's up there, and you know, in my opinion, but again, I think it's got to come from you.
Yeah, I mean, we could take a look at that. I'll talk to the staff. I mean, we've already given you some of a ranking here because we've put positions in that we think are more important and tried to solve other issues other ways. We could certainly do that. I mean, top of my head, emotional health is important. That's an issue we're dealing with. Class size is important. The board asked us to split the administrators. The band requests are up. I mean, a lot of thought goes into this. This is not just kind of shooting from the hip. I think they're all important. We can certainly look at it. Really, that's ultimately something the board needs to wrestle with. And, you see who made each request, and, they're free to speak as well if you want to question them in more detail about these
I would just want to be
requests.
prepared in case
Yeah.
it comes down to that
Yeah.
when we get further into this process. If council just wants to approve this as is, that's fine. It makes our job very easy, but I don't know if I see that. But
We can certainly continue talking about staff recommendations even Thursday night or in the future. Would we like to move on from this particular slide? Are there any other questions on the slides that Dr. Zito presented tonight? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one comment in regards to the class sizes. I know we're all talking about the educational value, but I also think there's a lot to be said with less kids in the classroom that would help with the social issues, with the mental health issues, because the teachers would have more time, less on their plate. They'll have more one-on-one interaction with the kids. Even 1-2 kids less in the class is a huge difference, I think. I mean, every teacher I've spoken to has mentioned certain comments like that. It's just something I want everybody to just keep in mind also.
Great.
Good point.
Yep. Ms. Manella, did you want to add?
Yes, Mark, I want to loop back to the HR position.
Sure.
Quick question regarding, you mentioned it was split between 2 people pre-COVID. And just really quick, I don't recall, but was the HR coordinator in that
No.
role? No, okay.
We did not have the HR coordinator. So we created the HR department. We hired an HR coordinator for June 1, that first full year after COVID.
After
It was created in the
Okay.
middle of COVID. And then the position was the director of special education, became assistant superintendent for personnel
That I remember.
and people services. And that was a very, roughly a $7,000 increase. It's kind of reflected here. It's
Yeah, right.
same kind of, it wasn't a huge increase for that position. The title changed, the responsibilities grew, but the pay did not go up dramatically.
Yep. I remember COVID very well.
Yeah, yep. And that was a long conversation with the board about making that change, but it was really, it was a function of the intensity of that time,
Yep.
and it was very helpful. Trying to track
The dashboard.
over 600 employees, making sure that they met the legal mandate to get the shot or
Yep.
they'd be fired. That's a lot of work.
Yep.
Getting that done. We were actually, I don't know, I could tell stories all day about COVID, but
Yeah.
the process of trying to land a contract to get the vaccines,
Yep.
I felt like I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, trying to find a vendor that could accommodate our staff.
I remember all too well.
Yeah, very intense time.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Dudanowitz?
No, I was just going to follow up. You offered to share that job spec for the HR coordinator with the board.
You
I
have it.
think the new one. No,
Yep.
the current position.
Oh, you want the current position? Yeah, we can get that for you.
No,
Yeah.
the current HR, is it the HR coordinator?
Coordinator, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, we can get you the HR coordinator? Yep, we'll get that
Thank
for you.
you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Mr.
Sorry,
Costa?
Jess, yeah, you said other slides. There's a lot of slides on this
Yeah.
thing, man.
Yep.
So
I I just want to move from this if we can. Are we ready to move from staffing recommendations currently right now? I know we may come back to it in the future, but
staffing recommendations,
yep,
I'm good
we
to
can
move on from that
I just want to
to
make sure.
other
Yes,
slides.
everybody's good to move on? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kosker.
So other slides was the salary increases explained, because obviously that's a important hot topic and lots of detail there. So, yeah, there's ones with like yellow highlighting on them or something. Yeah, we're in the
you
ballpark.
go.
There we go. That's the one. Yeah, so this is super helpful. I appreciate that. You know, it's funny, when I first looked at it and I looked at the 1.71 million number, I was like, that doesn't add up to 3 or 4%. So I was a little confused, but you've explained that. So it's a 3% contractual, roughly 3% annual contractual, 1% step, and then the bonus or extra of that is the degree changes, which
Correct.
did seem large to me when I did
is
the math.
large.
Yeah, it was like 6.25% is what that added up to, the 1.7 million. I was like, whoa, how do we get to 6.25 from 3 or 4? And I was like, wow, that's quite a
So,
jump. So yeah,
Degree changes last year were about 73,000. This year they're 363.
363.
Yeah.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
And that's
So-
all again part of the contract on what
It's contractual.
Contractual
So
and what they
what's
get.
happened is, we see a lot of requests for the same kind of universities. There's a couple schools, one out in California, Dominican University, and they target a 6-year program specific to Connecticut educators. They figured out it's a
niche.
it's a niche. So they're a California school targeting Connecticut educators. Teachers are following a contract and pursuing advanced degrees and getting a lane change,
Sure.
which means going like from master's to 6th year. So not only are they getting their raise, I'm not begrudging them their money, they earn it and they go through the contract and they fill out the paperwork.
Yeah.
So they're getting like a second master's or a 6-year diploma.
Yeah.
And they're jumping over, in some cases, $10,000, $11,000 when they change lanes. Not, steps and lanes are different, you know that as a
Right. No.
teacher.
Yeah. That's
So,
helpful.
you know, this is a big jump, and
Yeah.
we've seen a growing trend.
Yeah.
But they're getting these advanced degrees and they're moving through the contract.
Oh, and let me just say, I applaud the teachers for doing that, and
me too.
they deserve it, and they deserve the raise and all that. So I'm not begrudging of the fact that it shouldn't be that big. I was just like, holy smokes, like, because generally we talk, and I remember the couple years I've been on the board only, we like, well, there's kind of an automatic 3 or 4%, no matter what you do, right? Like there's nothing to say about this 3 or 4% increase because of contractual step increases, right? We have no say over that. Well, now that's 6.25 for this year,
Because
right?
the
Because of
degree changes are
contractual
driving
and
the
degree
difference.
changes. So that's just notable. That's
Yeah,
a
it's
big
huge.
chunk of
Yeah.
this.
Last
So,
year, the degree change number was about 73,000.
yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the salary increases? No? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to try to tie this in. So the new positions is 665.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the 665 and then back to the slide that we were talking about, that totals 671?
Right. So Scott, you want to dive into the detail on that? Give me a break here on that. Let me jump back to the other one. Where are we?
So sometimes it's
Which slide
salary
are we
only, and
talking about, Ms.
sometimes it's
Tucker?
bennies. Like that, it gets weird.
Oh,
So
maybe it's
sometimes
benefits.
there's weird stuff with bennies. Sometimes are included on a slide, and sometimes they're not.
So,
I get
yeah,
confused.
so 671 includes all of the offsets here.
Yep.
So then we broke it out and just went with new staffing. And it's 665. We would take some of those offsets regardless. So if you did no new staff, we would still do the elementary teacher. We would still do the 0.2 cut in the physical therapist. There'd still be some savings achieved there. So there's a differential when we go back here and we just see, this is just new
okay.
positions.
I'm
There's
following.
also
Okay.
non-certified and certified. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
Thank
we
you.
tried to give you multiple ways of looking at those data.
Yep.
Just to give you a very comprehensive picture of what's going on with the staffing.
Yeah, if you flip to the non-certified, we have another slide just like this one for non-cert. There it is.
Yep.
it's,
And we haven't done this before, so
I know,
we're
this
just
is helpful.
giving you some different
This
ways
is
of looking
super
at
helpful.
it. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, Amber, we have like the certified staff increases plus the non-certified staff increases. And then sometimes they're salary only and sometimes they're salary and benefits total cost. So it's like
Got it.
all those numbers. It's hard to line them up. I was doing the same thing. Actually, can you go back to the non-certified one?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, it is okay, Mr.
Okay,
Casper.
okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So, oh shoot, what was my question here? Oh yeah, so the contracted budget and increase. So that number was like 4.69 when I did my math. The 315, 119. So that's contractual, again, sort of a 3%, that's negotiated. And then there's no step increase thing with non-certified, right? It's just, or is it years of services or steps there too? I have no
No,
idea.
it's typically, so, custodians have they have like 2 steps. Like this includes custodians,
Okay,
nurses, most of those people, we could pull the contracts for it if you want them, but it's not like teachers where you see like a 12-step progression.
Yeah. I was just
You
trying
may
to-
see like a first-year custodian, and then in year 2, they jump up a little bit.
okay. I was just trying to understand, like, in my
Generally,
mind.
the wage increase, it's not a big, step is not a big driver in these
Right.
areas.
I just remember like having that, like when it was the time for the contracts, I wasn't ever part of those conversations, like, oh, we negotiated a 3% a year, whatever, 12% over 4 years. And I'm like, okay, 3%, I kind of look for that number, and then I see 4.69, I'm like, okay. There's no degree changes, there's no, so I was trying to just understand that increase of 4.69.
Well,
and
in
what-
new
what's
positions too, right, Scott? So the hall monitor is reflected there.
But that wouldn't be in the 315. My point is the
No, in the
315,000.
327, I'm talking
Right,
about.
right.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but in the 315, that number was 4.69 increase over the, well, the number's not here, but 6.7 million. Anyway, okay, I was just trying to understand how we get from a negotiated contract increase of 3% for non-certified staff, which is what I remember, and maybe I'm wrong, to a 4.69 for simply contracted budgeted salary increases. That part, and then there's another, so certainly the other is where it falls into. That's what I'm curious, I guess. What the heck's the other that makes up that other? And it sounds like small numbers, but,
We can break that down for you more on Thursday if you want. We can do.
that'd be great. And it might be broken down in this giant binder.
Yeah.
I just didn't find
Yep.
it. Thank you. Sorry, getting in the weeds on that one, but a lot to that slide.
No, and can I just make a note too that all of the salary, increases as far as contracts for whether it be certified or non-certified are gone over with the executive board of the Board of Education, and also I believe they have membership from the town council also present. Isn't that correct?
So
To
the
negotiate
council,
those?
the council is entitled to have a representative at negotiations for certified staff only, so
Oh.
for teachers and administrators, not when we're doing non-certified groups like custodians, nurses, paraeducators. The council does not come to those, but they do have the opportunity to sit at the certified negotiations.
And I do believe they did the last time that the contracts were negotiated.
And
Okay.
they have been consistently the last couple certified, both the administrators and the teachers. The other thing to keep in mind is that each negotiated contract is reviewed with the board in executive session prior to approval after the union ratifies the settlement. So it's we do this is something where the board does get all the details. Contracts aren't done without board approval.
Do you have a further
I do,
follow-up
sorry.
question? Go ahead.
Paraeducators. So again, sort of same question, the paraeducators, the 210 in the numbers in the book, and I guess maybe I could wait for this, but it's a 7.28% increase. I'm guessing that that's also a change in staff numbers, the number of. So I don't know if that question is for now or for later, but just like, I see our current FTEs is 89 when I looked in the book on that, whatever line item it was, 113 or something. So just curious, that's not all salary increase just from, they get a pay increase. It's also the numbers change and there's more. And I have all the love in the world for paraeducators, so this is like,
We will break that down for you for Thursday.
yeah, just the numbers
Break
of
down the
each step.
detail for you, give you a
Thank
little more detail there. Happy to do that.
Thank you. Sorry for the questions not being in advance, like our gold medal winner. I just didn't have my act together this weekend, so.
It's okay.
Okay, any other slides that you'd like to chat about before we move away from slides? No more slide questions currently? Yeah, no. Be careful what you say. Okay, so why don't we, would you like to dig into the questions that Mr. Clemens did send? I know he did a nice job with his questions, and I know you gave us a printout. Maybe we could start there, and then we can look at the book.
Not at all.
Yeah, if you want to move it closer, that would probably be best.
Yeah, move her nice and close.
So we'll go back and forth, Mr. Nozick and I, Dr. Nozick and I will just go through this, give me a little bit of a break here. So, question one, I'll take that first because you already got the breakdown. You have that with you, so. Any question, I mean, we just spent an hour on that, so you have that, so. And then, you know, we'll just go back and forth, so. Question two, Scott?
All right, so the question was, what is the budget reduction by eliminating the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and Pupil Services, the building substitute to high school, and why, and the reduction in the physical therapist, and why? The total for all three positions is $621,826. Mr. Fode preferred a hall monitor over the building sub. We talked about that a little bit. The caseload for the physical therapist position does not warrant a 1.0 FTE. It was 0.8 FTE previously, and that included time for travel between buildings. That individual is no longer traveling between buildings, and the caseload certainly is also a consideration, does not warrant the 1.0.
Okay, third question again, and again, I know, Brian, some of this was because you read the cover letter and had these questions.
Yep.
And you see we've outlined for you, but it's reflected in the chart as well, where these new positions are assigned. Elementary classroom teacher currently assigned to Stevens. The HR, Director of Personnel, Performance Management, Central Office, Secondary Special Ed Supervisor split between the high school and the middle school. Guidance Counselor for GMS, Core Language for Mosier. The social worker, again, is a secondary split, high school, middle school. The hall monitor is high school. And you have job descriptions at your desk, at your table area for each of those positions as well, as you requested. We also fixed the typo in the global section, so thank you for that correction. I'll let Scott jump in on 5, and he can talk a little bit about the transportation budget.
I thought 4 would have been appropriate since it was my typo,
There you go.
but.
That's okay.
So, yep. Why is there a 14.5% increase in Object 510 in district transportation, Object 511, transportation regular out of district, and 515, transportation special ed in the district? And those are the increases based on a low bid of 14.5%. And then the other vendor did offer a bid, which was a 38% increase.
May I ask a follow-up?
I'll take the
Yes.
next one, too.
Dr. Nozick, can I stop you for just a second?
Absolutely.
Ms. Tucker, go ahead.
For the transportation, you mentioned that we went out to bid for 2. Are there other companies that we can reach out to at this point, or there's really just 2 in the state that?
Two companies bid.
So we put it out
so
to
we put it
everybody.
out.
Open bidding
Yep.
process.
Yep.
Only 2 vendors responded.
Wow.
Interestingly, some others attended the meeting to get the rate sheets from the other competitors.
Interesting.
It's an open process per law.
Okay.
You know, it's
Thank
a
you for
bidding
clarifying.
process. We follow the charter and state law on that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Addy.
piggyback on
Sorry.
that. What is the risk if we rebid it? Is that an issue? Do we risk higher than 14.5% or risk, gaining, getting better bids? I know I deal with it in construction all the time. You don't like the numbers, you rebid it. Do we have time? Is it an option?
Time would be an issue because a new company assuming it wasn't the current company, would have to come in and establish a place to house all the buses. They'd have to hire drivers, create the routes for the district. It's not something that, you know, happens overnight. So we'd be up against a very tight timeframe. Typically, you wouldn't go out to bid now to do that. It'd be super tight. The risk certainly would be that, you know, if you recall, one of the conversations we had was we received actually a lower bid or a lower proposal from the current company if we didn't go out to bid. That number was, I believe, around 12%. And the discussion was 12% is a lot, and we should try to go out to bid. And we went out to bid, and it actually came out higher. In my conversations through CASBO, which is the you know, people in my position across the state, this is a very reasonable, sadly, a very reasonable contract in terms of increases.
And this is the same company that we currently have, correct?
It is.
Because I mean, I remember the company before, we had so many, they were late, early, you know, things like that. This company seemed to be, when they say they're going to be there, they're usually right on time, which is great.
We haven't had any complaints.
No.
And they're working with us. I know, sorry. But they also have the online app that works really well most of the time. Today it wasn't working, but you know, I appreciate, I think, the time and effort that they've put in, even putting, I think, some monitors on the bus. There's some video cameras on the bus. So I think we could go back and make sure students are safe.
We have a good rapport with them,
Right.
A good partnership. The issue was, you know, we thought the increase was significant and wanted to see if we could maybe get them to sharpen their pencils a little bit by going out to bid. And it didn't happen that way. And so, you know, this is kind of where we are. But if it wasn't for, you know, if it wasn't for the expense, certainly the service that we've received over the last 5 years has been good enough to warrant, you know, an extension.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
Next question was, why is there a 25.83% increase in Object 516 transportation special ed out of district? So that's the combination of the 14.5, kind of like the flat rate that we have going up, and a couple more students that we're transporting.
So then we were asked for a breakdown on rentals, and you see there the two, you know, large numbers, 98,000 going to 102, and the $65,000. That's the large space over on New Britain Avenue that for the transitional program. So it's Pathways, Dream Academy, Dream Cafe. The co-curricular rental for the high school is for the school play. We have to pay a fee for, this year they're doing a Little Mermaid, just to give you an example. And then ice time for hockey, $16,000. We do charge the towns who have kids on our co-op team on a per student athlete basis. But we have $16,000 budgeted for the rental fees. It's the most expensive sport. Any of you that are hockey parents or former hockey players, Brian, I know you were very involved with hockey. It's pay for ice time, and you pay a lot for equipment too. So that's the detail on those expenditures.
Speaking of hockey, since I know how expensive it is, I used to coach it. Do we get the other towns? I think we're up to 3 other towns right now that we're co-oping with.
Stan Trudeau here, you know, I think it's a 4-town co-op. Is that correct?
No, it's more than that now.
Now it's more than 4?
Bristol Central, Bristol Eastern, Southington, Plainville, Middletown, and technically Vinyl Tech is in it too, but they don't have any kids this year.
So, do we just charge their per player, or is there a, do we get
Per
money from, we don't get a flat fee from the schools per player?
Per player, correct.
Is that
We'll
paid?
take a check from the parents. We you know, whatever deal they work out with their board is with them, but we want a check from their athletic department.
All right, thank you.
High school security, I'll take that one also. So we previously were not budgeting, and this is a hit to the budget that's been coming in every year, and we just put it in the budget this year. We are constantly using police to cover athletic contests. Senior class car parade was something we did that was special for the kids during the COVID crisis. Again, we're still talking about COVID. But those kids had a virtual high school graduation in March 13th of 2020. The state basically closed the public schools, so those seniors lost everything. They lost their athletics that year. They lost all in-person learning. This board was one of the first in the state to open in the fall, which was great. But for those seniors in particular, they had a virtual high school graduation. Tough time. I don't want to revisit it. They were allowing parades, but they weren't letting high school kids go into an open stadium, which made no sense to me, but I should probably keep my opinions to myself. The senior class parade, however, was very well received, but once you start something, it becomes an expectation. And each senior class is expected a senior car parade. There is an expense for that, so we are budgeting for that this year. We have a great relationship with the police, but they don't work those private details without compensation, and it doesn't come out of the town side. So we're putting money in the budget for it this year, so that explains the number.
Maybe you take this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna, you take this.
Oh, the next one, okay, reading, okay, yes, so when we restructured, and we talked about this a little bit earlier tonight with the slides, but when we were restructuring for MTSS, I worked closely with Wendy. We looked at staffing, and we wanted to make sure that there was a reading specialist at both the high school and the middle school, so we're currently staffed with one teacher at each school, but in the book, you see, it looks like an elimination that was actually done last spring. You also see a corresponding increase, high school salary, reading. And if you look at those two line items, you'll see where the high school number goes up. So it's not really an elimination, more of a transfer. It was a reduction of one position at the middle school, transfer to person to the high school.
Thank you.
Bright Beginnings, you also see offsets for questions 10 and 11. You'll see that in the detail in the book, and that's because we moved all the Bright Beginnings programs over to West Hill for the sake of efficiency. Summer school, number 12, last year, after the town council voted on their appropriation, the board eliminated summer enrichment programming. The cost is roughly $36,000. I did not put it in the budget because it was eliminated last year. Certainly something the board can put into the budget, that's at the discretion of the board, but it wasn't in the budget that you adopted in June last year, your final budget adoption at the June meeting, so I did not add that as an increased cost. Line item 1,029,111, that is not an increase, it's actually a decrease. If you look at that again, you'll see it's in parentheses. And that, we looked at that, that's where in previous years we had done some reductions for anticipated retirements, and it was tucked into that line as a $92,000 reduction. So it's not an increase, it's actually a reduction. The line item currently holds $7,000, and that's for the 10 teachers that receive a team mentoring stipend of $700 apiece. 14, question about special education. It's not transportation, it's transition, and that reflects two salaries. It's the culinary director and the culinary assistant, both of whom work at the Dream Cafe. Solar panels, there was a huge discussion. Ron did some homework on this for us at the town council meeting on September 15th. Those minutes are online. They're in depth. There was a whole conversation. We basically summarized, Ron summarized the conversation, essentially, and you can talk to your colleagues on the council, and you can go back and look at those minutes. Solar panels were considered to be not a good idea because the town already has to purchase all their electricity made by the existing solar farm under the contract it has with Tesla. And there's this whole concept of energy credits and excess energy credits and saving more energy. Strange as it sounds, really be beneficial because they return those savings in credits, and we've already, they cap them, and then they expire. So there's a, if you go back to the minutes I've given you the council meeting, there is a massive conversation scripted about this issue. So it's really something, unless something changes with the town's arrangement with the solar farm, from a financial standpoint, putting those solar panels on the schools is not beneficial. Not my argument. I mean, we talked about this years ago in facilities, and it's never really gone anywhere. Ron, I don't know if you want to add to it. Ron's here. Is he here?
Yeah, he's here.
Do you want to add it to anything on the solar panels? It's really not advantageous at this point.
It's very complicated, the conversation about it. I don't know all the math that's involved, but the more energy we end up saving actually affects the contracted test levels. So right now, until that contract expires, it's not working.
All right, thank you.
Right. Yeah, I'll take the equipment. Next question is about Rocky Hill High School. There's a 80.54% increase. And then why are there decreases at GMS, 50%, Stevens 38.2%, and Mosier 60%? Can you explain the increase and decreases? So the high school's requested $19,605 in equipment to be shared among the PE and athletic departments. And it includes the 3 double half racks, 6 stand-up adjustable benches, 4 Titan connector bars, 3 landmine single knuckles, and $875 for freight and $950 for assembly. The reductions recommended for the other schools are being made after analyzing current expenditures. Actual expenses to date reflect that each school is holding a large unspent portion of the equipment line. Therefore, the request for next year to have been reduced to promote fiscal efficiency.
Any questions? Follow-up questions? No? Okay. Dr. Zito, do you think it would be good for us to go through the book into parts, just because we do have some new board members here, and then we can decide whether we want to go forward with other parts of the evening?
So if I may, I think it's appropriate to spend a few minutes, just we can orient ourselves to the book, maybe have a conversation about what we want to do Thursday night. I know a number of questions have come in that we did not have time to get through before tonight. So I would propose that we come and Thursday night and answer those additional questions that board members have sent in. Typically, Chris does his technology presentation at the second budget session, so we would also be prepared to have him present. We will also come back with some of the details that folks were looking for, like Tom, I know you have questions, Kristen, the coordinator's job description, so we'll get you that information. So that's kind of how I would recommend going forward with Thursday. In terms of this book, I'm happy to kind of just give you an orientation to the book, and then we can dig into it, time permitting. It really is up to the board, you know, what time you mentioned 8:30 potentially as a target. There were no restroom breaks from the council's request, but that's okay. I think if we sit lightly, we can keep going. So you have the cover letter in the first tab, and that's pretty detailed, and it kind of explains a lot. You get into the excess cost formula, which I know for new board members is sometimes a question. Breakout, the CIP is a separate standalone appropriation, so that's important to keep in mind. It's a similar format as to what you've seen in the past. The first series of data are in the global tab. You already saw the pie chart, which kind of lays out the expenses, and then we kind of get into the budget drivers, and we break the budget apart in this section by large sections by object code. So, it's all laid out. I mean, you can take it home with you, you can look at it, we can talk about it tonight. We're here for you guys, whatever works best for you. But just kind of orienting people to the book, and then we can go back and start through the tabs if you wish. The educational data is important. I touched upon it tonight. Most of this information was reviewed in detail by Ms. Durand at the November board meeting when she gave the academic report. So we only included a couple of slides tonight, just to show you that the district continues to perform very well, and it's a credit to the staff in our schools and obviously our students who take their studies seriously and have good support at home. So we don't spend a lot of time at the budget hearing going through the educational data, but it's there for your convenience. We obviously talked about this information at other venues, like when Wendy does a report. You have a whole section on enrollment data. These are the NASDAQ projections. We've been using the New England School Development Council for years. They're the premier organization in the New England states that tracks enrollment. They're generally pretty good. You've got a whole section about their methodology and reliability on page 12. That's important. Comparative data, that's really, you mentioned, I will draw your attention to that. So if you go to comparative data, I'm not sure, was it, might have been you, Ms. Lafredo, asking where we stand relative to other towns in the state historically. Somebody brought that up. So I'm looking at page 2 in comparative data. And you'll see where, going back to 2001, where Rocky Hill ranked in terms of state rankings. Keeping in mind there's 166 school districts. So back 25 years ago, Rocky Hill was 74th, kind of middle of the pack. And you could kind of see a regression over time, towards the low end, 95, spiking at one point down, 4 years ago down at 146. We've come back a little bit, but the trend over time, certainly going back to 2001, is an increasingly conservative approach to budgeting and a lower number in terms of ranking in the state. So I think you were kind of driving at that earlier, and those are some data to back you up there. The next page are the town's Anglic rankings, which ironically, going back 15 years, we haven't added more towns. We haven't, stolen any land from Massachusetts or Rhode Island, so we're still at 169 towns and 166 school districts. And you can see that even 15 years ago, our Anglic ranking, which is our relative ability to pay, was 75, and we're still in the mid-70s at 77. So Rocky Hill has historically been kind of a middle-of-the-pack town, Connecticut, in terms of Connecticut's wealth, and historically kind of pays like a lower-end town. It's just factual. So those are the data, and they're important, I think, to kind of frame the budget conversation. The next slide is interesting, too. You kind of see the gap between the Anglic ranking and the per pupil, and I almost wish this was flipped over, because if you look at the way the graph is, it looks like we're outspending, but actually keep in mind that moving towards the 160 is not a good thing. So just spend some time on that chart, but you can see per pupil expenses, down to 126, and our relative wealth is 77 on the ranking. So it would be good to see that blue line below the red line. If we were, spending at our ability to pay, the blue line would come down on the chart. The next two tabs are heavy information. I appreciate Mr. Clemens for digging into the weeds with some of his questions, but the object budget sorts all the items by object, and then the program does program sorting. The two sheets, I say this each year, the two sheets I look at more than anything else are the first two sheets, actually it's now three. The object summary, to me, is the most user-friendly portion of the budget. Because if you look at the 3 pages of the overall object summary, before we get into the object detail report, you can see, where the line items are and where the percentages are. So some of the things that Mr. Kosker was talking about, they pop out to you on the object summary. And we break it out, by category. You can see that group insurance line, for example, going up 16.6%. We explained why that's happening. There is a reduction in substitutes because we're looking to, have some consolidation somewhere, but to the point that several board members made, that typically is an account that runs a little bit in the red, so certainly valid. This is just very helpful. You can see the salary increases for certified staff, non-certified. You can see all the factors increasing the budget. The transportation numbers are up, tuition numbers are up. I just find this to be very useful when I'm really trying to dig into the budget. It's very helpful. I think it's user-friendly.
And very similar to the monthly report that you get from me as well.
Program budget is just, it's the same numbers. It's just
Dr.
sorted
Zito, hold on.
different-
Mr. Addy?
Since you were on that, you mentioned transportation, and it's actually one of the questions I sent in. Would it be prudent for us to increase our student transportation field trip line item by 14.5%? Right now, we're holding the line. Are we gonna see a 14.5% increase on
I think it is-
student
I think-
transportation
I think
field
to your
trips?
point, I think it is prudent. When we start building this budget, at the principal's level, back in September. And they would have no idea about, percent increases, and so that's a real number. When they want to take those field trips or those athletic trips, it's gonna be a 14.5% increase over what the current rate is, so I would say yes.
Okay, all right, thanks for letting me interrupt.
In a regular field trip situation, do students usually pay for buses in in a fee that they're asked to maybe hand over? I know I heard you say athletics, that's maybe different, but I'm just curious, is that ever paid for by a family?
Yes. So my experience as an elementary principal, we didn't have field trips that were covered by district funds. So that was always something that either a student paid for, the student's family paid for. Sometimes it's offset by PTO donation or something like that. There are a few programs, primarily at, I want to say, the middle and high school, where they have some field trips that are kind of built into their programming, and then those costs. And I would ask, Mr. Maziarz or Mr. Fode, if without putting them on the spot, but I think some of those field trips, students do contribute a portion of that as well. It's not paid for entirely out of the operating budget, but it's a range. So we go from, I think most of us at the elementary level, that's paid for completely, by outside funds, and then, there's a few field trips that are paid for by the board.
Yeah, I was just thinking ahead of time with the increase, right? We want to think about equity and making sure that doesn't fall on students to have to pay or families having to pay, and then their child not being able to attend. So, good question.
Moving along, just to orient you to the book, program budget, the dollars are the same, they're just coded, by program here instead of object. A lot of detail on those two tabs. Grants and entitlements are the federal and state programs that are independent of the board's operating budget. That is a council appropriation. We get into detail later on in the sessions, but you see them laid out, your federal and state programs. The staffing sheets, you received two handouts tonight to update the high school and the middle school. We looked into that a little bit more today, and I think that transfer is reflected on those handouts, the special ed teacher. But you see everything laid out, and it matches what we talked about earlier about the increase of 5.2 staff. The technology budget, and Chris will get into a lot of detail Thursday evening. The CIP, again, that's a separate appropriation. The big expenses scheduled for next year are the middle school renovations for the tech ed classrooms, the media center, the high school tennis court, which is beyond repair at this point. It's been resurfaced a couple of times. It cannot tolerate another resurfacing. It needs to be completely redone.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Clemens.
Tennis courts, wasn't it? I thought we had some discussion last year where Parks and Rec might cover some of that since it's used more than just by the schools.
Ron, you wanna
discussion
speak to
go
the
anywhere?
Tennis courts again, I know we've met numerous times on tennis courts.
So we had a meeting with town's finance department and how we presented this, and overall, we're trying to do all capital projects townwide. And we wanted to keep it in our lane, it's not school property, and we would oversee any of the work being done to it, so we broke it out into 2 separate years of financing, so that the second year we can actually get it completed. So you'll see there's a $500,000 and a $500,000 to get it done completely one summer. So that $500,000 that's in there for this year will not be used until the following year we have to complete $1 million. But
I mean,
ultimately, it is town owned.
It's the same impact on the taxpayers.
Yeah, I just,
CIP, so it's, if they, to Ron's point, it's a town-owned facility. They own the schools technically too. I mean, these are town assets.
I understand.
How they fund it, if they're more comfortable, if they fund it, I'm happy. I don't care if they put it in the CIP personally or they pay through Park and Rec, because it's no impact on the mill rate for a taxpayer. But I do understand their rationale in putting it into the CIP. Now, I hope they fund it through the CIP, because it does need to be replaced. And it's a town asset. If it doesn't get replaced, we will look at contracting for indoor tennis for our athletes, just like we do with ice hockey. We'll find a space for the tennis players. But we may have residents who are upset about a tennis court that's in disrepair. So that's, something that has to be decided ultimately by the council in terms of, if the board thinks it's a priority, I would recommend you keep it in your CIP. The other major expenses there are McVicker. The visitors' bleachers were removed, 10 years ago and haven't been replaced. It's been kicked around for a while. They were in disrepair. They were taken out as a safety issue. And then classroom furniture, which has kind of been pushed to the side. And in talking with Ron, we really would be remiss if we didn't start annually funding some replacement furniture in the schools. It's important.
Dr. Zito, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Last year, when the town council asked us to rank certain items, were the tennis courts on that ranking? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I know, the only thing I did is I ranked school projects. They wanted me to rank everything. Ron, you were part of that with me with Chuck. And I said, I'm not ranking, some facility for the police. Like that, I'm not gonna render an opinion on that. We talked about the issues that were important to us. I believe the tennis courts were on there, but we can.
I thought they were too. So it's not something that they're not aware of. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we've had conversations in the town manager's office with Ray and Mona and Craig, Ron and I, about the tennis courts. And they are, we did a patch job on them maybe 5-6 years ago. And we were told at the time, this is the last time you can patch it. You're gonna have to just completely tear apart and resurface it. These are concrete tension courts, in case you were gonna ask that, Mr. Addy. So, I think, it's a decision that has to be made ultimately by the elected officials. We recommend that the tennis courts get replaced.
Okay.
And I think the life on those, Ron, is at least, is it 10 years once they get done?
And once they're done, it's longer than that, so
Yeah.
we won't be seeing another tennis court for like.
In our time. Okay. All right.
Kindergartners, right?
So that's your CIP tab, your magnet schools and transportation. We'd like to give you kind of a breakdown of where we are transporting kids and where they attend magnet schools. We go over this every year. It's a lot of detail there, broken down between the Creek schools and the Hartford schools. You have an overview of what transportation covers, and then we actually give you the numbers from the magnet school invoices, so you can see the number of children attending programs at all of the various schools combined between Creek and Hartford. There is no charge to us for tuition for the Hartford kids. We do pay special ed services for kids at both schools if they go beyond the normal charges. Facilities and maintenance. Ron is here. If we get into this tab in more detail, I'm sure he'd be happy to talk about it. And that narrative is a holdover from 20 years ago, and it's been empty for 20 years. That's kind of an overview. I think, we're at, what, 8:38. I don't know if there's any gambling going on tonight on when we finish, but it's 8:38.
Well, I guess I have a question for the board. As we were going through the book just now and just listening to what Dr. Zito had suggested about Chris giving his technology presentation on Thursday night, I'm wondering if we could also kind of zero in on the grants and entitlements also on Thursday night, along with special education, and then the follow-up questions that I know that were sent today. So that would be kind of Thursday night's agenda. And then on February 5th, the agenda would be going through kind of CIP, facilities, and then line by line, the program budget. How does everyone feel about that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, object budget, program
Or,
budget,
yeah,
say
or,
whatever that
correct.
piece. Yeah.
Either object budget or both.
Okay,
I
sure.
really have no problem with
Yeah,
doing both.
that's cool.
Are there any other items that you would like to talk about tonight? I know we discussed a lot tonight, and there's a lot to digest, and I'm sure there will be more questions going forward, but is there anything else that you'd like to talk about tonight in our budget book in front of you? Go ahead, Mr. Addy.
Just a quick, pretty simple question regarding transportation. So it's 3-year contract, this 14.5% that we're seeing this year, 26, 27. Are we going to see small incremental increases year after that, but not 14%, correct?
4% in year 2, 4% in year 3.
Okay. And then obviously the options to extend, there would be.
Yeah, we went with 3. You want to explain what's going on with the propane legislation and everything
Yeah,
else?
there's legislation out there about having electric buses. So if that were to, there's also a lot of talk that might get kicked, that Kia might get kicked down the road a little bit. The cost for an electric bus is, I don't want to give you a wrong number, but it's significantly more than a gasoline-powered bus. And so, much like they did, a few years ago with the HVAC and requiring, districts to have them, serviced or inspected every year, and then they realized that they didn't have the infrastructure to do that. This is the same, only on a much larger cost scale. There'll be bus companies, in my opinion, that will go out of business, and we would be looking at significant increases. So we worded our contract so that for the 3 years before this takes place, we're fine with what we have. If that legislation, if that deadline moves down a couple of years, we have the right to extend our current contract from 3 years to 5 years. It just depends on what happens if we have to get electric buses. And, the bus company would have to put in infrastructure to charge those things. And there's a lot to it. And so as it gets closer to the deadline, I think you'll hear more and more about it. It'll be newsworthy. But right now, we structured the contract like a lot of districts, take us through the deadline, and then we have options depending on what happens after year 3.
Those options, is it the 4% each for year 4, 4% year 5, or is that
I think they only gave us numbers for the first 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was recommended. We work with Shipman on helping frame the RFP, and they were acutely aware of this proposal to switch over to these electric buses, so it makes sense to go with the 3 years and then see what happens.
Any other questions this evening? Okay. I think we've gone through a lot tonight, and there's a lot to absorb, so I am wondering if we can take a motion to adjourn for the evening. Would everybody be okay about adjourning tonight and picking up Thursday?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Mr. Clemens. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Manella, thank you so much. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Zito and your team. I appreciate it. We will see you again on Thursday.
Don't have to vote. I'm against
All
it.
right, we're at it.